Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the KnifeCenter, and it is our favorite time of the week because we've got the coolest new knives that have just hit our shelves right here in front of me. Let's check it out. All right, we're going to start off this week, I guess the theme you could call it, at least at the beginning, what's old is new again. And with that, the first two are things that have kind of classic old school patterns behind them, but made in a completely modern way. Let's check those out first, shall we? The first is from Rosecraft Blades, their Clinch River model, which was previously available as a slip joint, now available as a locking knife, a button locking knife, in fact. And this is actually a pretty impressive thing, especially when you consider the build quality, the materials you're getting. M390 blade steel here for the price, about $110 for it. Blade itself is just over 3 inches long. You've got that Wharncliffe shape with a full flat grind, and check out the grind lines on this knife. Everything is super crisp and very, very precise feeling. The handles, we've got black micarta with titanium bolsters and a titanium shield with the Rosecraft logo there embedded in it. Looks rather classy in my opinion. And as far as the action goes, it is very nice. I mean, you can tell just by the sound of it, especially on the close. It's just got something real nice indeed. Now, as for the opening action, as you can see, there's no real thumb stud or anything to reach, no flipper tab to open it. In fact, this is locked in place in the closed position until you depress that button and give it a little flick, at which point it is a very easy opening action overall. As far as feel in the hand, this is a sway back handle, of course, so it excels especially in a reverse grip with the edge actually facing towards you. Those types of drawing cuts or pulling cuts are going to feel really great. In terms of the forward momentum or forward pointed edge, it's not quite as natural as some other handle shapes can be, but it's also, in this particular case, not really sticking out like a sore thumb. It does feel pretty decent and pretty seated, or pretty well seated, I should say, in that forward grip. Plenty of choil area there, if you want to stick your finger in it to get some nice fine detail work, or do a pinch grip up there, that is also capable. And then when I'm holding it like this again, I'm just really appreciating those nice, fine, crisp grinds on that blade. Just very nice. Milled titanium pocket clip to round things out, right side tip up only in this case. Yeah, very, very nice. Next up, we've got a knife that takes its inspiration not from classic sway back slip joints, but from classic trapper handles, in my opinion. And that is the Daedalus Knife Company Lab series of front flippers. $150 for these. These are actually being OEM'd for them by Concept, so the quality is quite good and trustworthy. Blade, 3 inches long, 154 cm steel in this case, with an almost full flat grind terminating like right in the middle of that full length fuller on each side of the blade. And then the handles are pure classic trapper in their outline. This is a bead blasted aluminum on this case, or on this particular one. It's the kind of plain version, which in my opinion is the classiest version they make, but there are some more colorful options and some black coated blades if you'd rather go that route. Price on this, if I didn't mention it already, was $150, and it feels right where you'd want it to be for that kind of quality. Check out the inset liner lock on there, nice and classy. Top style flipper right here, and works great for me using the thumb. Not quite as easy to use with the index finger. In fact, I'm having a little bit of difficulty with that, but thankfully no problems whatsoever with that thumb actuation. Feels good in the hand, can flex into a big full-fisted grip when you really need to, or just handle with more precision when you don't need that sort of thing. Milled pocket clip, secured from the inside, so no outside visible screw, and it nestles right into the hand nicely as well. What else do I like about this? Well, I like that in this particular case, there's no type of index finger guard, which I like those too in certain instances, but this one allows you to get right up there behind the edge and really experience the cutting potential of that blade the way you would on like a classic slip joint knife. But you've got the safety of a liner lock to back this one up instead. Let's do one more thing. I haven't tried to reverse flick it with the fuller. One can do. There you go. We'll try one more time. There you go.
2 out of 4 times.
So that works also. Speaking of gray aluminum, it's a big week for Benchmade, and this is kind of continuing the what's old is new again trend. The 710 is back. It was reintroduced this year after many years out of production with new updates to the design. We've seen the special editions arrive at this point, and now the standard catalog version is being released today, actually, the same day this video is going live. With this new version coming in at about $405, you've got an S90V blade at a 4-inch length with that classic mild recurve on that blade. Just a kind of snake-like, striking, powerful drop point blade style with that recurve. The handles, as I mentioned, gray aluminum with these scored or milled lines creating a pattern and motion in that handle itself. Plenty of length there for bigger grips. You've got the thumb ramp here at the top for orienting your grip in a saber grip like so. Makes it feel rather precise, and actually in a twisting motion, that tip stays pretty stationary. So it actually rotates around an axis pretty nicely. As for the signature axis lock, this of course, the reason it was reintroduced this year, the knife, not the axis lock, is this is the 25th anniversary of this knife in which the axis lock made its debut. So now we've got this new knife back in production, but with some tweaks to that crossbar locking style knife. Most visible, of course, being the stepped lock bar release right there. Makes it very easy to grab onto when you're going to grab onto it. And on the inside, rather than just a simple Omega spring, there's actually, the spring in this case is now flat, like a leaf style Omega spring. So that should be even more durable than the non-leaf sprung, leaf Omega sprung versions of this classic lock. Rounding things out, you got the deep carry pocket clip, which is reversible, and that makes this knife completely ambidextrous as well, since of course a crossbar lock, like the axis lock, is ambidextrous, and you got the dual thumb studs as well. So perfectly symmetrical experience, whether you're a righty or a lefty. Definitely lets you get big cuts done in style, and I'd say this next knife lets you get cuts done in style too. Maybe not as big of a cut, but the next two Benchmades are revamps of previously existing knives in the lineup. So again, keeping the trend going here. The first is the North Fork, which, like the Grizzly Creek, which was reintroduced last year, the only real big difference between this and the previous versions is no recurve on the blade. So recurve, like on the 710 here, adds sharpened length in any given blade length, so you get a little bit more cutting power, as well as on a draw cut, it engages what you're cutting a little bit differently, but they can be a little bit more tricky to sharpen than a standard plain edge. So you've got an easier to sharpen blade in the North Fork right here. And the design of this knife is such that it's kind of an easy knife or an easy design to recommend to just about anyone, in my opinion, because you've got a 3-inch blade, which means you can take it just about anywhere. You've got a drop point shape with a versatile flat grind on it. You can do just about any task you need. The controls are completely ambidextrous again, with the axis lock and the reversible pocket clip. That's the word. And the handle is such that, it's a small knife and can be small when you want it to be small, but when you need to make a bigger cut, when you need that knife to feel bigger, you can do that with the North Fork. You've got enough girth to these diamond wood handles or these stabilized wood handles and enough height to it that, if you're holding it just here right behind the index finger guard, for me it's kind of a 3.5 finger grip, but choke up just a little bit and I can fit all 4 of my fingers on my slightly larger than average hands on this knife and really push into this blade. So it's a smart combination of things that make it just an easy thing to recommend. And in terms of the value in Benchmade's lineup, this is one of their more affordable options. It's not a cheap knife, of course, but this is coming in at about $207 these days. And don't just let it relegate it to being part of the Hunt series. Certainly it's hunting focused, but It's a great EDC pattern, I think. Next up, also in the Hunt series, the Steep Country is back, now just with a new color, a more neutral, less hunting specific orange. Now we've got the green here, olive green Santoprene. $162 for this fixed blade knife. You've got an S30V blade, nice and thin with a full flat grind. It's not the same shape as the blade on the bug out, but I kind of think of this knife philosophically as being like the fixed blade bug out, because you've got a thin slicey blade and you've got lightweight construction. The knife itself is just 3 ounces, and that's a full length tang on something like this. So it's strong, you've got premium particle steel, you got a great cutting experience with something that's not gonna weigh you down. The ergonomics feel pretty good too. You've got the tang sticking out of the top here a little bit, acting as kind of like crenellations, and they don't really cause hot spots because they kind of sit in a pocket, at least on my hand. And in terms of the actual shape of the grip itself, nice contour, nice space for pinch grips on the thumb scallop. I wouldn't necessarily want to like whittle away at wood for a couple hours next to the campfire with this. I prefer a more hand-filling grip, but for the nimbleness, this really does do a nice job. I will throw them a little bit of shade for their sheath, however. It is Bolteron, everything works perfectly fine, but you will have to supply your own belt attachment hardware. Pretty much anything will work, whether it's horizontal strap type of mechanisms, a tech lock, an ulti-clip. The hole and slot configuration on the side of this sheath will work really nicely, but it would have been nice to have something out of the box so that you didn't have to do that. Next up, we've got another fixed blade, and this one is, in my mind anyway, rather interesting. This is the Blackside Customs SLCC fixed blade, which is a collaboration with Micarta. This is an American-made knife coming in at $350 with a MagnaCut blade. So you've got pretty much the most well-rounded stainless steel out there because it is very tough and holds an edge quite well, and is of course stainless. You have a coating on this blade, not because it needs the protection from corrosion, but this being kind of a tactical focus design, keeping the reflections down, and just black tactical needs black things. You know, it's just what it is these days, right? So there you go. But I like the design. The handle is very unconventional. It's stubby. You know, it's at most, depending on how I'm holding it, a 3-finger grip, but it is wide. It feels secure, and it's designed to get basically the maximum amount of blade you can with as little handle as necessary to still maintain control over that knife, so that it is a smaller package overall and able to be concealed or carried subtly more easily. As far as the blade itself, sharpened edge is a little bit over 3.5 inches long when you measure in a straight line, but tip back to the handle is about 4 3/8. What that means is you've got, you know, a full-size knife right there. In terms of the way the handle is kinked, it presents the tip at a very nice angle. This feels very natural and secure, even with, as I'm holding it in this type of fashion, kind of a 2.5 finger type of feel on the handle. It still feels super locked in. The milling on the end or the tops of that G10 certainly helps a little bit, gives you the traction, but really it's about the shape. And then in terms of just general purpose utility cuts, you can really push down into a cut and engage this section of the belly kind of square on. And pinch grips are really nice because I can get all 4 of my fingers on the knife. I can tuck in right there with my pinky and really use that effectively. I like it a lot. I think that's very cool. I've seen some other things kind of similar to it before, but none that kind of come together quite as cohesively as this one does. I do have one bit of shade to throw at these guys too, however, and that's also down to the sheath. It's Kydex, it works fine. The hole spacing on here, however, is not compatible with your standard tech lock, but ulti-clips or something could work. And again, nothing is included out of the box. Maybe because this is kind of designed for concealment, they're leaving that up to you to supply your preferred method, because you could certainly do the horizontal straps or an ulti-clip or some inside the waistband types of solutions. Again, I think it might have been nice to have something, but it would have been even nicer if that hole spacing was a little more universal. Next up, a couple of Spydercos to take a look at. The first is the Bodacious, anticipated knife for sure. It is sort of the updated, or they almost could have called this the Shaman 2 instead of having it be a new knife name out there. And in fact, we've already seen this popping up on social media. The lock and the liners, the compression lock and all the stuff on the inside is actually compatible with some aftermarket Shaman scales. So if you have some of those, you want to throw these on there, you could. You wouldn't be able to use the choil area of those scales because this knife does not have that finger choil like the Shaman does. But internally, that's kind of neat, kind of the same thing. So it'd be a little easier for any folks out there who already make Shaman scales. Some of the work's already done if they wanted to start making Bodacious scales. So, hint, hint.
That'd be Bodacious of them.
I don't know anything. I don't know anyone who's doing this, but I'm just saying it would be easy to do. You do get more sharpened edge than you do on the Shaman. 3.66 inches long, and you get edge all the way back to that handle. No choil taking up space, no wide ricasso. You've got as much edge as you can get, which is pretty nice. S30V steel, American-made knife overall. Handles are G10. They are sanded smooth, so you lose that texture, so you get a less grippy, less pocket shreddy experience, it should be said. And you have the finger-safe operating compression lock there on the spine. And unlike the Shaman, folks who know the nubbin of the Shaman will stick into that compression lock area. You don't have that with the Bodacious either. Overall, feels pretty nimble for such a wide blade. Weight is 4.8 ounces. So I go to show that you got that 3-ounce Benchmade over there, just how lightweight that particular knife is. This should carry a little bit flatter, a little bit smaller in the pocket as a result of the flat scales and the particular weight, but you've still got that big, strong blade with a little bit of full thickness spine and the strength of the compression lock as well. 2-position pocket clip. Super solid choice if you need a heavier duty knife in your lineup and you like what Spyderco does. The same could actually be said for this very next knife from Spyderco. They're continuing their Micarta expansion with the Manix 2XL, the bigger version of the Manix with a CruWear blade and natural Micarta handle scales. This one comes in about $224 and some change. Even though this knife is larger than the Manix, the actual grip length between this index finger guard and the beak at the back is actually exactly the same. It gets extended out the back a little bit to make more room for the larger blade in the case of this design, which is about a 3.85 inch from tip to scale measurement. A little bit less sharpened edge, of course, because of the finger choil there for choking up. A little bit less sharpened edge actually than the Bodacious, just barely, but it is notable, it is there. This is, however, a more ambidextrous knife than the Bodacious, since the ball bearing lock, which is buried underneath these pull tabs, is a completely symmetrical design for left or right-handed use, and all the other controls are ambidextrous as well. I really like the kind of heavy working vibes of the Micarta handles on these, and I like the toughness of the CruWear to boot, but it's still a knife that's going to slice pretty well thanks to that nice tall blade with a full flat grind. Next up, we have got a new version of the Tahoma field knife from Tops. Basically just a new color, I believe. Black Micarta in this case, $230 for this American-made knife. For that, you've got a blade length of almost 8.5 inches. It's maybe not the choppiest knife in this size range for a couple of reasons. It's still gonna do a pretty decent job, I'm gonna say. But there are others that are gonna chop a little harder if that's what you're looking for. Part of that's due to the grind here at the tip. We've got a sharpened swedge here at the back. So this is actually a double-edged knife that's gonna remove some weight near the tip, which might otherwise provide you more force in a chop. It's also at about 5/32 of an inch thick, a little bit thinner than, we'll just say like the Becker BK9, for example, with its 3/16 inch blade. We had that in a video last weekend, so it's on my mind. But there are other things as well that might chop a little harder. This is more about getting you a lot of that capability while being a little bit more easy to carry and a little bit more nimble, and quite honestly, a little bit more tactical focused as well with that double edge. You've got these notches at the back, which of course can be used for wire breaking. You've got a finger choil here at the front, so it makes sharpening easier because there's nothing to get in the way of your stone, and you also are enabling that choked up grip for more balanced, fine work, which actually feels really good. And really that's like one of three main positions or three main ways you might hold this knife. Standard grip, especially with the thumb ramp here, would be kind of that saber style grip. And then you could also choke back a little bit and still have all four fingers on the knife for a little more chopping length and power. As for the rest of the handle, we've got protruding tang at the back with a wedge-like profile. That's going to both help focus force if you need to bash with it, as well as act as an impromptu prying tool. And you've also got that kind of bushcraft feature of the divots in the handle scales, which allow you to use this as a bearing block in a bow drill fire in a survival situation. As always, though, I would always recommend do that with the knife in its sheath, will ya? Last thing you need is a cut when trying to make a fire. And you can do it there, as you can see, inside the nylon sheath. So that's gonna be a lot more safe. Speaking of the nylon sheath, here it is. MOLLE attachments on the back, belt attachments here at the top. You've got an extra flap here for extra goodies, whether it's a sharpener, other survival bits and bobs that you might want to carry in a sheath. You could do that if you wish. And you've got the whistle as well to get your survival kit started. Next up, keeping the kind of Micarta hardworking vibes going, we've got this knife right here. This is called the Cult V2. It's a special edition from Stahlwerk Messer, which is a very striking looking knife. Comes in at about $550. This is made for them by Riot, so quality is right up there. I mean, they're pretty much the go-to producer for high quality frame lock style knives these days, and it's easy to see why when you look at this knife. Blade, 3.5 inches long, M390 with a PVD coating on this particular one. Now the blade, even though we call it a tanto, doesn't really have a very defined transition between the back and the front edges. It's rather gradual, but you do get that very aggressive or very dramatic difference in terms of the compound grinds here. Your flat ground here at the tip, ostensibly for a little bit more strength, but the actual point does come down to a very, very acute and needle-like point. So that's going to be a very efficient piercer, if not the strongest out there. And then it back to make the standard cutting, standard slicing more efficient and get a thinner behind the edge profile. You've got that high hollow grind, and it really is whisper thin as you get out there towards the edge, which is really nice indeed. The titanium handles have this kind of like enlarged golf ball-like texture on the back and on the pocket clip, which is quite cool. And on the front Micarta inlay as well. So you get a little extra grip, especially also aided by the matte finish there. As far as the action on this knife, you've got for deployment a small thumb disc here on the spine that makes it ambidextrous opening. And contrary to what you might think, or you might expect, I should say, or at least contrary to what I would have expected, we don't have ball bearings in the pivot. We've actually got a set of washers in the pivot, which still flick open quite nicely, as you can see, but that are going to be a little bit better at resisting dirt and grime and dust and stuff, kind of mucking up the action as you actually put the knife to work. And you ought to put the knife to work because it's got the strength behind it. Not only do you have the frame lock, but the actual handle itself is quite robust. It's just two pieces. It's not an integral, but you don't have a backspacer. This is actually the front side extends towards the back. It's all milled from a single piece, so you get really solid lockup or solid mate up between the two. Now, if you can't stretch your frame lock budget quite that far, we do have another more affordable option for you right now at just under $200, the ArtisanCutlery Kami, a Dirk Pinkerton design. And this thing has got some really cool dynamic lines going on for sure. Almost a 3.8-inch blade, S35 VN steel with that stone-washed finish, Micarta handle scale on the front, and titanium frame lock on the back with that milled titanium clip to back things up. As far as the feel in the hand, it's got just enough space for my hands, which are slightly larger than average. Your mileage may vary. If you've got really big hands, you might start to feel a little bit cramped on this. So take that under advisement, if you will. And let's check out the action here. This one does have ball bearings, and we've got a thumb disc here, just like on the Stahlwerk, but it is a little bit larger, and you've got that flipper tab at the back as well. Flips just as you would expect from a ball bearing equipped Artisan Cutlery frame lock, which is to say, exactly right. And then you've got the thumb disc. I haven't tried it yet, but the reverse flick works great. Actually, that's really satisfying. And let's see, the standard thumb opening works excellently as well. Here's another knife with some recurve. And again, gives you a little bit extra edge in your given blade length and a little bit extra power on the draw cuts, thanks to that thing that's going to kind of do a little bit of that gathering into the edge as you pull through. Very cool. So I think we've had some good values on the table so far, especially that first Rosecraft knife we looked at, but nothing that's truly been real like budget friendly until now. So I apologize that it's so late in the video for those of you who are on more of a budget these days, but it's a nice one actually. The CJRB Nova coming in at about $48. And this is a knife that may not look it visually, but it has almost a 3.5-inch blade, and it's going to carry very easily in the pocket. The handles are flat G10, fairly simple, fairly neutral, but with an index finger groove there, and just wide enough to get a real full grip on it, but still maintain nimbleness to that blade. And check it out, a Tanto from CJRB. That's kind of a new thing for them. We've got a hollow grind at the back and flat at the front. Got a compound grind, which is also a first from them, and a nice full-length swedge on that harpoon-styled spine, which is pretty cool. Deep carry pocket clip. This is the olive-flavored version, but our other flavors are available. Inset liner lock. Really a lot of value in this knife for sure. Very narrow and clean when folded up. So again, something that's going to be very easy to integrate into most folks' pockets in terms of the amount of space it takes up, and yet 3.5-inch blade as mentioned. And this comes with their RPM 9 steel, which is basically a spray formed version of a 9CR series stainless. 9CR would have still been a good choice in this price range. The spray form is going to give it, technology is going to give that a little bit more toughness to back up that material. So all in all, I think it's still a very good material choice. Next up, kind of similar vibes in terms of color. A little bit more expensive, but still good value for an Italian-made knife. The MKM Lov, designed by Jesper Vakne, is coming in at just under $70 right now. And this is not a large knife, but it has the vibes of a very dependable knife and something that is very strong for its size. Blade itself is just over 3 inches long. You've got N690 stainless in this case with, I believe, is that a full flat? Kind of throwing me off a little bit. It looks like there might be just a hint of the top of the grind right here. So it's virtually a full flat grind. We'll go with that. This one has the tan coating on the blade and extending to the back spacer, or the back spring itself, which is terminating in a lock back there at the end of the handle. And the handle itself is injection molded. It's got a bit of texture on it for grip and just enough for a full handled grip. It's definitely not the same type of fullness that you might get out of that CJRB we just mentioned, but it's got just enough to give you what you need while offering, without having to give you too much extra handle, just enough basically to house that blade. And speaking of which, check out the thickness of that blade. Not a thin scalpel-like thing right here. You've got, again, a bit more durability in this thing right here. And ambidextrous quality too, thanks to the lockback and the reversible wire pocket clip right there. And then of course, other flavors are also available to suit your taste preferences. Next up, and basically tying the CJRB in terms of budget friendliness today, is the Vosteed Acorn, coming in at $49. And this is a 3-inch knife, a couple bucks more than the CJRB, but not quite as big. 14C28N Sandvik steel, really good stuff there. I'm a big fan of the toughness of that steel, as well as its very fine edge holding capabilities. Not gonna hold an edge like a powder metal, of course, but I love how fine and how stable the edge on this type of steel really is. This is the blueberry flavored Micarta. Is this getting old yet? This whole flavor analogy I'm doing?
It might lose its taste.
This is why I keep Thomas around.
Yeah, that's why.
That's why. But anyway, you've got the blue style Micarta. You've also got, there's a green option and a black option for the Micarta. Both of those do come with a black blade. However, this version comes with the satin blade. I like the handle shape here. It's a shape that allows a lot of different hand sizes to work with it. You've got, for me, about a 3.5 finger grip on it, but a generous finger choil there, allowing me to get up and really get both of those last 2 fingers on the handle, and that's gonna give you a lot of grip strength right there. I'm not gonna, in this type of grip, not really gonna be gripping hard with my index finger because it's unneeded, quite honestly. And I don't wanna get too close to that edge anyway, so very cool. But yeah, it's a good little shape. Definitely folds up nice and compact for pocket carry. You've got a reversible deep carry clip. You've got a front flipper. Oh no, oh no. This is the first like true front flipper today. Yeah, I think so. Let's see. Hey, no problems. It's not too small of a knife for my hand size anyway to get a good front flip on. But you've also got the opening hole in the blade. So your thumb opening works great and your reverse flick works great also. Next up, we've got another blue Micarta handle. This one really nailing that denim look. We have technically a new brand, but not really, and not really a new knife either. This is well, you might recognize this as the Concept Nesstreet, and you'd be right and wrong at the same time. This is the Nesstreet, but they are branding this as a tenable knife. Tenable knives, basically, they're taking existing Concept designs and doing more budget-friendly versions of them. Not sure why they wouldn't just call it like Concept something line instead of spinning up a new brand, but not my decision to make. What you're getting, however, here is a pretty cool button locking knife for the tune of about $58 right now. Just over a 3.5 inch blade, Sandvik's 14C28N again on this particular knife. I can't sing the praises of that steel enough. It's one of my favorites in the budget category for sure. And the lines on this knife are the type of thing I really enjoy. It's not really a Nessmuck style thing. It's a little too, modified sheep's footy or modified Warncliffey, in my opinion, to call it a Nessmuck blade. But hey, splitting hairs here. It's all in good fun. We've got a folded over pocket clip, not reversible, which is kind of a shame again, because a button lock is very useful or very usable in the left hand. But the action is quite good. Ball bearings in that pivot. Nice flicking action with the thumb. Let's do a reverse flick. Had to get the angle just right, sorry. But you can see it's easy enough to hit it. I just was hitting it at the wrong angle and still am, apparently. It's not the knife's fault, folks, it's me. Yeah, pretty cool thing. You've got a high flat grind on there. You've got a strong blade profile, especially for big push cuts where you really need to put a lot of muscle behind it, but enough belly for some rocking capability or some knuckle clearance if you're doing anything on a surface, like dragging that tip along, whatever you're working on, and very acute tip for precision work as well. Let's keep that blade style going a little bit with the newest versions of the Microtech Cypher II. Newest versions of the Microtech Cypher called the Cypher II. This is taking all of their new innovations in the way they're building their knives to this particular model. 3.5 inch blade. You've got their proprietary M390 MK stainless steel right here with a two-tone finish. $436 for this one. The handles are aluminum, and the cool thing here is no visible fasteners except for the single one holding on the pocket clip there on the back. No little screws to kind of break up the lines of the knife. You just get to enjoy the milling that they've got going on instead. Speaking of that pocket clip, here it is. It's very robust feeling. You've got the ball bearing at the end, and you've got the insert here in the back with the standard ball tip window breaker as well. And then the firing action. This is where things get really interesting with this knife. It's easier to use, like easier to fire than past Microtechs, and yet fires harder than past Microtechs. So whatever they did to make that work, it's done really nicely. And then you've got what they're calling the crud cutter. It's essentially serrations on the surface where the slider switch meets the body, and that reduces friction as well as gives a place for lint and pocket debris to gather and stay out of the way of the slider switch, also reducing friction and the ease of which the knife operates. Very, very cool. Given the theme at the beginning of the video, I should have had these up near the front, I am now realizing. That's the Cold Steel 60 Series Spectre. We've got the two versions right here, the Hawkbill blade and the drop point blade. We'll start with the Hawkbill. This was the original version of the Spectre. These were last in the lineup close to like 20 years ago. I'm not sure exactly when they were discontinued, but it was about that long ago that we could still confirm it was in the lineup. Now they've just been kind of updated. The dimensions and everything haven't really changed from the original, but the specifications of the materials have come much more up to date. Pricing on these, it's about $300. You're getting a 20 CV blade, 3 3/4 inch long. Very aggressive Hawkbill shape right here. Not really a like efficient cutter. You've got a very narrow blade and a thick spine. The idea of this is not to be like that thing you're breaking down a mountain of cardboard with. This is like a classy self-defense type of knife, quite honestly. At least that's the vibe it gives me. Like, this is about having an aggressive blade, but having some class to it as well. Really nice coating on the blade. I believe it's a DLC, but it still feels like metal. It doesn't feel like it's been painted over. I always like that type of finish. Bolsters here are titanium. Carbon fiber is the handle scale, and the thickness of it is about as thick as the handle profile is wide. So it kind of gives you kind of a squared off feeling in the hand. Again, not something that, that I would like work for hours with, actually getting jobs done. This is more about refinement in presentation, I would say. We've got a liner lock with the folded over, what's it on the end? There's a word for that. I really like that style of liner lock because it's nice and easy to use, very user-friendly to operate, very comfortable. And then a single position thumb stud, which is probably the biggest clue to its origins of almost 2 decades ago. It's a feature that nowadays most things come with double-sided thumb studs, but maintaining the originality of this was more about what they were going for here. And then you've got the drop point or almost spear point version, maybe a little bit more user-friendly or a little bit more versatile for daily carry. Again, not a super efficient slicing knife. It is going to be fairly strong when you need to use it, however. Now this next knife has both style and a pretty efficient blade. And again, I think this one actually is going to offer some pretty good value for some folks out there too. Another combo design from Bestech. This is the Razon, coming in at $263 with a Magna Cut blade right here. Almost 4 inches of Magna Cut blade as well. And the styling is kind of updated. Again, man, I'm kicking myself now. I realize this could have also been kind of near the beginning as well in terms of, it's not a pre-existing model that's being brought back, but it's kind of classic pattern inspired. Like, this has got Navaja style written all over it, I think.
I just say we went full circle.
We went full circle. What's old is new again. What's end is beginning again. It was all part of the plan.
That's why clocks are round.
Now I get it. Time is a circle. No, time is an illusion. Lunchtime doubly so. Anyway, back to the knife. Well, all this nonsense. I'm sorry. It's the end of the video. I'm getting a little punchy. Anyway, big, broad clip point going on. Full flat grind. Very, very slicey profile overall. And again, Magna Cut is stainless, is tough, and holds an edge really nicely. That toughness is going to be appreciated, especially on that very fine tip on this knife right there. The handles are titanium, nice and tapering. They really present that blade in a forward fashion, brings the tip down, makes the point very natural. Just feels pretty cool. This is the standard titanium finish, but again, several flavors are available if you don't like this particular coloration, but you like the styling of it. The frame lock there works really nice. Folds up, not as wide as you would think, given how dramatic it is when it's open. And this is another knife with the thumb disc right there. And something I've not seen on a thumb disc before. We'll have to try to get a shot of this. There you go. It's almost like forked coming down. Instead of being flat on the bottom, you've got these little forks, for lack of a better term. That gives one more spot for the flesh of your finger to get in there and move the blade. That's pretty cool. Reverse flick works great. Standard thumb flick also works great. Those are your two options in this case because there is no flipper tab. Man, that's a lot of cool dramatic knife for the handle size right there, and Bestech is doing a great job with their frame locks for sure. Check it out. All right, that's all I've got to show you this week. Let me know what you thought down in the comments. Let me know what you might like to see next week. If something's hit the site and we haven't seen it on a video yet, drop it below. And if you want to get your hands on any of these knives, guess what? There are links in the description that will take you to KnifeCenter.com. While you're there, don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program, because the least thing we can do when you buy one of our knives today is give you some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera. We're signing off. See you next time.